And we are live, guys. Welcome to another live stream from Men of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. Today, we're going to talk about where do all the feminine boys come from. It's a very, very important topic because we are living in it as we speak. And I just want to remind my viewers, my male viewers, because that's what the channel is for, that this channel is not supposed to be politically correct. I am speaking the truth according to my understanding of it. You take what you understand and then look at the world, observe what is going on, and make your own opinion. So, let's start. First of all, let's define masculinity and femininity. There's a lot of definitions out there, and to be honest with you, most of them are plain wrong. I define masculinity as the ability to control oneself, the ability to control one's emotions. That is my foundational part of masculinity. Understanding that makes it so much easier to apply masculinity in all other areas of life and categories. Which means that femininity is the opposite. The lack of control. The lack of emotional control. And not being able to use one's brain to overpower that which one feels. That's in very simple terms. Now let's see if we can apply it at the same time as we learn where do these feminine boys come from. It has to start from birth, but it goes beyond that. But let's start from birth. When you are born, actually when you're in your mother's womb, at that moment in time you start out, every single person does, male or female, start out as feminine. We don't have a penis in there. That thing grows as over time in the womb. It's not automatic. We all start out feminine and then things start to change because of the chromosomes. I might not do all the terminology correctly, but just hear me out. You start out feminine. When you're born, guess what? Are you able to control your emotions? No. Should you be expected to control your emotions? Absolutely not. Why? Because you are just born. You come into the world and you've got no idea what's going on. You don't know anything. The only thing you know is that you have needs. You want booby, you want food, and you want to make sure that you're not cold, not hot, and all those things. This is being a baby. Completely understandable, and we appreciate it because it helps us to know with immediate feedback that something is wrong with the child at this moment in time. And we have to do something to actually alleviate the pain and circumstance that the child is in. Except the night routine, okay? You want kids to sleep through the night. So to let them cry then, it's completely fine. But moving on to the next, we grow up now and we're in our early childhood. And at this moment in time, have we learned to control ourselves yet? Absolutely not. Should we be expected to? No. Why is that? Because there's a lot of parents out there, and there's schools, there's kindergartens, there's a lot of people that say, sit down, don't do that, boom, boom, boom. And they're basically telling kids to control yourself. And what ends up happening is that the kids are forced to control themselves too early. What happens? The boys have now been feminine and not being able to control themselves. They move on into teenage years, and at this moment in time, they're still not able to control themselves, but now is the time to start controlling oneself. But since 40% of boys are being raised by single mothers very often, these boys tend to not be raised by someone who tells them to control their emotions. Instead, they're told to nurture their emotions. And it's okay to cry. And it's okay to do this and that and the other because, it's your emotions. Your emotions are important. Don't get me wrong, emotions are important because you can use your emotions and channel them for positive measures in the future. But if you are basically being told that express yourself, get your emotions out there, the people need to see it, it's gonna be an issue for boys. You gotta understand that because when they keep doing that throughout their teenage years, their minds get warped and they remain in their childish circumstance and remain a child forever. Forever. You gotta understand that. I'm now let me go back. This is let's talk about the girls for a second because this also goes the other way around so you understand that there's an opposition to all of this. Why are women becoming more and more masculine? That's right. Women are becoming more masculine. Boys, men are becoming more feminine. So they remain in their boyhood. The girls, what's happening there is that they are burdened just as well in their early years. We're talking now 0 to 8, okay? And during this time, they're being told to be masculine. And they don't know any better. And because they're born with the innate ability to care, which boys are not, by the way, girls actually care about what happens around them. And they care about other people. And they're being told to care about more and more and more and more and more and more things. What ends up happening is that they grow up, teenage years, and they still care about everything that happens to them when they're rejected and all that stuff, and they try to fix things and they try to work this and they try to do that and try to do this. And what they're doing, instead of channeling that part of masculinity that they have in the correct areas of life, the small few areas of life that are necessary for perpetuation of the human race, what ends up happening is that they diversify their caring until the point where they do not care anymore. Interesting. And they have... So let's go back now to where did this happen? Why are kids burdened so much? And why is this happening? Everything happens because of the mother. I'm not blaming mothers, but let me explain. When mothers start having babies, they will either be unburdened during their pregnancy or they will be burdened. The more burdened they are during their pregnancy as the child is maturing inside this woman's body, the fetus, the child, the baby will also be burdened. A burdened mother will create a burdened child. So the child is born, and guess what? Most often the time, the mother who was burdened during the pregnancy will also be burdened during the early formative years of that child. So what's going to happen? Burdened mother, burdened child. That child is now growing up burdened, which means that they have to take upon themselves responsibility too early, and they now have to fight for their survival. This happens if there's a lot of kids in the family. That's one way boys become more feminine. If you look at large families, you will notice that the boys are way more feminine than the average family. Interesting. I was born into a large family. I was the youngest of 8. And you'll notice also out there that if a mother is heavily burdened, not heavenly burdened, heavily burdened, then her boys will tend to become more emotional. We're bringing it back to my definition of masculinity and femininity. The ability or inability to control one's emotions. You can't control your emotions? That means you're feminine. And it doesn't come from you alone. It comes from your mother. Look back at her life. Was her life burdened? And I will tell you, most of the time, yes. The only women in history that have not been burdened have been women who basically were provided for in the royal courts and by emperors. Beautiful women that created children that allowed the emperors and kings to create masculine men and feminine daughters. And that's how they created allies according to, do you understand? While the poor people, they ended up having burdened kids very often, unless they understood this principle to not put too much burden on the kids, allow them to grow up, a father who basically protected the environment so that they would be able to grow up happily, more happily, because they were able to control themselves. Okay, but we've got to take it one step further, because responsibility is a masculine trait. Men are 100% responsibility. In my understanding of life, women, because they're not able to control themselves, because of their more intense emotions than men, have 0% responsibility. If you understand that, you will never get divorced. If you understand that, you will also know how to communicate with women and never escalate. You escalate, she will blame you. This is the reason why women blame. Femininity blames the empire. Masculinity builds the empire. Okay? Which one do you want to be? Do you want to be the blamer, the one who doesn't have power, the one who gives away his power to the person who has the empire? Or do you want to be the person who actually has the empire and who's trying to take responsibility over the whole flock? Who do you want to be? We got to take it one step further, since it's not the mother's fault. Whose fault is it? It's the father. It's the father's fault for not taking responsibility and making sure that his wife, or whoever he impregnated, was taken care of, protected, and provided for. So that his descendants, his children, would therefore also not be burdened by the problems of life, because he had taken it upon himself to provide for them. Does that make sense? Now, obviously, this goes back through many generations. But now we've come to a point where we can understand relationships. Relationships is a science. Male and female dynamics is a science. You understand masculinity, you understand femininity, you understand the world. It's not only talking about gender and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. It goes into every sphere of society. And it goes into politics as well. That's why this channel is politically incorrect, because I speak the truth. In a society where political correctness abides, this is the time when the truth is ignored and we don't face facts, the way things actually are, and that which truly works. My definition of truth, if you don't remember, is that which works in the long run and in the big scheme of things. Let's bring it back. Why does it matter? Why is it a problem that boys are feminine? That guys are feminine? Are you saying that they shouldn't be any gay people? Gotta understand, what I'm saying is that we're trying to make the world less confusing, because the less confused the people are, the more happy they can be, the better decisions they can make. Have you ever tried to make decisions while being massively confused? your decisions will probably not be worthwhile. And they probably won't be guiding you into the right direction. If you know the truth about masculinity and femininity, as a man, as a boy, you can move towards masculinity in order to purge yourself of the lack of emotional control. But if you keep moving towards feminine things, what's going to happen? You're going to wallow in your lack of emotional control. Let me insert here my personal story. I gotta do this quicker, man. Sorry about this, but this is powerful stuff. Again, this might be one of my most important videos. Again, men of high value. My personal story is that I was born as the youngest of 8 kids, meaning I was the one with the least burdens in my family out of every single one. But did that take me away from being burdened? No. I was alleviated of a ton of burdens. Yet, I grew up feminine too. Massively feminine, I might add. So what does that mean? That means that I had a tendency, a leniency to follow in the footsteps of my parents of being in the entertainment industry. Entertainment, arts, creativity, all those fuzzy, nice feelings and woo. Is that a problem? Well, let's talk about it, because this is important. My father struggled with the lack of emotional control, which had a massive effect and burden on his children. My mother had 8 kids. Only 7 lived at the same time in the household, yet they were financially burdened because my father, he tried to provide and did his very best, and it's amazing that they managed to get us through. But guess what? Like, we're living in the new era, new times. It would have been a lot harder if there hadn't been a welfare state supporting them. And to be honest with you, the only time that my father actually got productions happening most of the time was because he got money from the government to pursue his arts. When they took away the money, what was he going to do? He would need a job. Okay, so at this point in time, we're basically growing up in the middle class poor in Norway, and that's where I got my burning desire for riches. And as time has passed by, I've understood that it's my duty to become rich. It's my duty to have success in life. It's my duty to my future children. I mean, I have 3 kids right now, but I'm saying to my future descendants, my empire that I'm creating, it's my duty to establish that empire for my wife, for my kids, for my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and so on. Growing up as feminine, I basically was guided towards expressing my emotions, being a performer, being an artist, being a singer, being a dancer, doing all those things that would lead me towards the entertainment industry. Am I glad that I realized at the age of 16 that, you know what, since I failed at this competition and family is at the top of my value, my top values was family, I realized, you know what? The entertainment industry is not awesome for family. Families are established when the man has control over his emotions. And I left the entertainment industry, of which I'm truly grateful. What has happened though? I still love to sing. And I'm a pretty good singer. If you go back to one of my first videos, there will be a link of me performing Elvis. I'm still pretty good. But my wife also loves to sing. What does that mean? That basically means that I'm kind of better than her, right? Because she wasn't raised in that kind of entertainment industry, entertainment family. Which means that I would correct her whenever she tried to develop her skill. Does that help her at all? No, it doesn't. Does it help that I sing when she wants to sing? No. We're polar opposites, which means that in order for her to blossom in the arts and entertainment, which women are allowed and supposed to be in, I have to back off and tone down and control that desire to sing because I want to see her shine. Do you want to be the one who shines, or do you want to allow your wife to shine? This is all is combined together. At one point in time, you might have to control your emotions and instead focus on those things that are critically important to your family and your future. Just look at all the guys and their relationships. Come on, in the entertainment industry, you know what I mean. We've got Michael Jackson, feminine or masculine. Elvis Presley, what did he die of? Okay, lack of emotional control. You've got Elton John, Queen. Should we be queens or should we be kings? Okay, so let's talk about the things that we should be doing. I think Dr. Phil had actually a pretty good formula for this. He said in order for you to be a good father, which is the most important work that we will ever do on planet Earth, there's 4 things you need to do well. 1 is providing. Number 2 is protecting. Number 3 is being a leader. And number 4 is being a teacher. And I will add at the end, a teacher of truth. That which works in the long run, in the big scheme of things. And I will take this into part 2 in tomorrow's video. My name is Joseph Darling. This is the Men of High Value channel. If you like this video, and even if you disliked it, comment down below. I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear your views. And make sure you smash that like button. I'll see you again tomorrow.